I'm scrambling to get things done.
Yeah, because it's going to need to be over for like Monday.
Suzanne and I were, that's probably why I didn't really think it,
We all have to use it. I mean,
we were so excited because we had what seemed like a really long time to go through this agenda. You can probably tell the difference between me and Suzanne. I have a million slides. Suzanne has one. It's very spare. I'm like cluttered and full, whatever. But we thought, okay, this time we're going to have breathing room. We're really going to be able to get through the entire agenda. And of course, anyway, that's just the way it is.
Look at the agenda. First I said, there's too much time here. We're going to have to fill it. I said, no, we're not going to, but we're just going to go with what we've got. We will fill it.
So I think we're all, I think on the same page that reflection is really important and it serves a lot of purposes. Students enjoy it and we enjoy it as faculty, but then there is this kind of getting real aspect to it of how to really make it work, how to deal with the real life constraints that we're facing. So what we conceived of for this part of the agenda was to talk about some of those challenges and some strategies for how to maximize time and resources, etc. So this is really your agenda in terms of what are the challenges that you face. People have raised some challenges, but maybe let's take them one by one and describe them a little bit more fully and then talk about some strategies for addressing them so that we are able to integrate reflection into our teaching to its maximum capacity. So, challenges anybody wants to?
I'm ready.
Well, I guess I was supposed to say the delivery system. I mean, we talk about a conventional course. I actually, when I do internships with students, much of this is by email. So I'm limited in sort of the level of amount of questions that I can ask. So what you've helped me realize is that I have to change what I give them before they embark on this adventure. So change my instructional materials.
So the delivery system as a challenge. Maybe we could list a few challenges and then go back over, because they may overlap in some of the strategies for dealing with them, such as you mentioned, kind of dealing with some issues up front might apply to a few of them. Other challenges?
I realize that as we talk about this, and most of us are in kind of clinical disciplines where we're working with people who are learning to work with people in one way or another. And yet, at the same time, this strikes me when we look at this sort of hierarchy, that this really has a lot to do with helping students think and become observers of their own thinking, and has a lot to do, I think, with critical thinking. And so I wonder if there are ways of engaging faculty in other disciplines and using this, if there's any literature about that, or, I mean, certainly people who do service learning as an add-on or part of their course, that's a part of it. But I'm just thinking if we wanted to somehow engage our faculty in reflection on reflection, how we might do that.
Engaging faculty, sort of spreading the word.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
And I have a similar challenge in that as I'm working with faculty sponsors for internships.
Sorry.
Okay.
I will realize this is a little less sturdy than the other one. Keep going.
When I'm working with my faculty sponsors, because all of our majors are required to do an internship before they graduate, so every department is involved in internships. My more pre-professional types of majors are doing this already and have very strong reflection pieces. The students from the majors who really need this the most, because it's a little bit more abstract for them, connecting major with professional opportunities. I can't get those departments to engage in things like this, so that's a huge challenge, and those students need it the most.
It does seem like one of the challenges, sort of theme is cultural or institutional change. So if we can sort of lump one set of challenges into just implementing it within the context of a course and the structural limitations within a course, and then the institutional kinds of challenges, that might be some of the, the umbrella. Any other challenges that people want to?
Well, I think for me anyway, is that it is time consuming, and so it's hard sometimes to know where to draw the line on that. I think it's very beneficial, but when you're thinking of a clinical day and thinking. And it takes a good hour to do that. So time is the issue.
I think getting students to see that there's value in it. Buying. Yeah.
Student buy-in.
Evaluation piece that we already spoke about, that's certainly what the challenge
Next to institutional, and I don't know if this was said explicitly or implicitly, but institutional value. Will the institution value this? As
So buy-in by the institution?
yes,
From the institution?
but not only buy-in, but value it for faculty.
Okay.
Tenure, et
Yes.
cetera, recognition. This may be enough challenges to try to solve in the next whatever number of minutes. So maybe we can begin by focusing on the institutional ones, and then maybe go to the course challenges, structural things, and then to the student buy-in, and try to cover all those three kind of big areas. Is that? I think time infuses all of them somehow.
So course structure, institution. What was the third?
The student buy-in,
Student.
and I think time kind of does
Yeah.
figure into all of them in a way, so it may have to come up in all of them. But why don't we start with, since the institution kind of sets the tone, although I've also learned that students can demand change and are more listened to than faculty, so it works in both directions, I guess, but we have to start somewhere. So changing the institutional culture around reflection, or just, inventive, creative, pedagogical methods, but specifically reflection, because that's what we're talking about today. How to do that.
Well, I think that's really entrenched in the institutional's history. I mean, I'm at New England College. I was undergrad there, and I think we have a very strong culture to embrace different pedagogies, and we actually now have an Office of Engaged Learning, so they fund various faculty activities that we like to do, many of them which are engaging reflective learning in there. So it all fits under those high impact, teaching practices. And so I think I'm not seeing a struggle as an institution to support and get faculty involved in this, even across the disciplines. So I really think that it's a long historical kind of perspective, and I'm sure folks that are at state institutions may find more resistance to this than at a small private school. So
Although I'm at a state institution, and our institution, it's UMass Medical School, cares a lot about what our constituents, which is a lot of people in the state, think about the school. You can call it PR, but they care about it a lot. And so as a public institution, we do care about this. And I'll mention, I shouldn't jump in yet, but I've already started, so I'm going to. It matters at our school that students in the health professions have an opportunity to learn with students from other health professions, that interprofessional learning, which is where everybody is or is going right now. And we were able to, actually as in response to a request by one of the higher up medical education deans for the school, show her some excerpts from student journals about their comments about learning about the other health professions. I never knew nurses knew so much. I never knew there were all these levels of nursing. I never knew. And so commenting on that and being in situations, learning situations where they're learning with the others and about the others, that was powerful and really supported our work in service learning and reflection. So if you can figure out what your institution values, and if there's a way you can see that some of this work in reflection, service learning, or reflection absent full-blown service learning, and then communicate that to the leaders of the institution. It's a way, I think, that worked for us.
Other strategies to, well, in the universities where the culture exists, that's great.
Well, yeah, I guess I realized why it exists, because it's part of our strategic plan, and it has been. So get it in as a strategic initiative.
And then keep reinforcing it, because just because you have it now, as we know, doesn't mean you keep it forever. Yeah.
I mean, one thing related to that is in either the strategic plan or the mission statements or some of the accreditation requirements of your institutions, there probably are items that actually directly relate to experiential learning, reflection learning, or things that you can pretty quickly extrapolate to that. During lunch, I was talking to one person about how, the accreditation people come around and suddenly the service learning people are out there, and all the stuff that we do that's like off, to the side is kind of brought into the mainstream because that's what makes them look good. But it's also, it is in fact, in many cases, meeting institutional requirements for accreditation. It's just that they're not really put front and center, but it does give us some amount of kind of bargaining power or clout or something to say, actually, this is important, this is really core. Remember, there's this part of the mission statement, there's this requirement. So anyway, other institutional strategies to change the culture. Among faculty, somebody asked specifically, faculty buy-in. Are there things that people have used to engage faculty or to win other faculty over?
We haven't won. Our department is interdisciplinary. I am the only person doing service learning. We have held presentations at department meetings, presentations by students. We have offered to have the classes listed as PI classes, that is permission of instructor to enroll, which is like creating a fantasy routine, which is what I'm able to do. We have met with, as you suggested, when evaluators come through, look at the strategic plan, place it out. But we have not yet won a battle in the war. So I think it is sometimes the institutional position, and that sometimes acknowledging the value of the process, but it is a very difficult sell to many. I often think certain disciplines lend themselves more to the process than do others, particularly if departments may have internships where they see this kind of work, a preliminary step to an internship in a department.
Yeah, if it meets another identified educational need, I think you're right. Anything else? What kind of, being a scientist, what kind of data do you think would be needed to make a stronger case, say, in institutions to other faculty, to the administrators? Yeah.
Well, one of the things that I'm currently involved in our liberal education program review. So we're reevaluating our whole general education program. And one of the tools that we're using for that is the LEAP report from AACNU, which has all the essential learning outcomes, high impact practices, and it also has asked employers what do they value as far as skills that students are coming into the work world with. And, you know, they're all liberal education outcome types of things, critical thinking, ability to communicate and write effectively, analyze. So all the things that you can get from a strong reflection piece within a program is a part of that. So I can see we could make some headway at our institution by using that type of tool.
Mm-hmm.
So if some of you aren't familiar with the LEAP report from the AACNU, Google it, it's there.
And it's a free download too.
Yeah, free download. No, I think the association wants people to use it. Definitely free download.
One of the, oh, go ahead.
Well, I haven't done this, but as I'm just thinking about it, I have a feeling that perhaps some disciplines that don't normally think along these lines see reflection as a kind of squishy, touchy-feely kind of thing that they don't want to be associated with. And so it might be possible to find ways of illustrating what reflection is, using some exemplars, letting them see what students can do with reflection. Maybe having some kind of an event where students do posters or something, but in some way present the way their thinking has been extended. I guess sort of finding a way to help faculty see it as something that's useful, not just sort of something that the touchy feels. Now, I don't know, Joe, it sounds like you've tried many things and not been able to succeed, but...
With faculty,
Right.
We do have a number of departments where we have one or two faculty
Right.
members who would want it, but it's probably
Never.
15% or 20% at best.
Of the overall thing.
Overall. But again, I come back to the piece from the institution, and I can certainly appreciate the position of faculty when reflective learning is not valued in the promotion tenure process.
Right.
So that's an obstacle. It is viewed then as something extra that we have to do.
So if you want to, that comes partly to the course structure. If faculty can build scholarship around the reflections that their students are doing, and use that towards promotion and tenure and their own march up the academic ladder, then I think that can be. And there's a Michigan Journal of Service Learning. Some great articles have appeared in it on reflection, and other journals that are doing more with service learning.
I also see this as just differentiated instruction. So we have a requirement, to reach all of our learners, and this clearly is a way that many students will gravitate towards as to compared to some other approaches.
Yeah.
So I think if we're in institutions that have ed departments, that they actually may be paving the way for these different pedagogies.
The interesting thing is that in the realm of educational scholarship, the traditional methods are taken at face value. We're never required to prove that they work. They don't probably work that well. We already actually know that they don't work that well because students get to the workplace not well prepared by that. For people who do differentiated or other approaches, including reflection, we're held to a higher standard. But that's just the way it is. And it probably is better to actually prove that what you're doing is accomplishing something. So I think something in the realm of scholarship, whether it's descriptive, whether there is actually any sort of experimental design or evaluative design, would probably be great, especially across the disciplines that you have. And also what you were describing about just showcasing and speaking the language that people speak in academia. There are poster sessions where students get to display their work. There could be a parallel for students' experiential learning and their personal growth. And hopefully in an educational institution, personal growth and however students demonstrate what they've learned through reflection would be meaningful and speak the language. So I think we should move to the course structure, those challenges within the constraints of the course, and let's try to put time into that one too. Because certainly time is one of the major constraints. But how can people address some of the constraints of just working within a course and the resources you have, and your own limited resource as one person? I mean, I've heard people talk about having 120 students or something. What do you do?
Yeah, it is. It's very challenging. And the way we currently have it structured, our students do 2 reflective journals per clinical experience, times, 120 students. It's an awful lot of reading for me. And I love reading them. I get bogged down in trying to provide meaningful feedback. So I've been playing with the idea of doing it through threaded discussion instead, and trying to respond that way. And in that way, they might get some of that peer feedback as well. But then I worry, do they hold back on what their journal is because they know 65 classmates could click on it and download it themselves? So I'm not happy with that one. We just had a faculty development workshop on a tool called Jing that I'd never heard of, and it's a way to provide audio feedback to the student. So I literally just learned it. I would like to try that with this because I think it gives, again, more, I don't necessarily want to say real-time feedback, but I think it allows the student to hear my own thought processes as I'm reading their journal. And I think that would engage and show them that I value what they're doing with it.
And what's that called?
It's called Jing, J-I-N-G. And it's a tool that allows you to do screenshots and insert audio files when you provide feedback on an assignment. So again, I still need to play with that, but that's one of my goals this summer to see if I can implement that for my next cohort.
We look forward to hearing how it goes.
Okay. So and I'm meeting with my colleagues to see whether part of the reality is we're going to have to cut down on how many of these assignments I have them do. If instead of 2 every quarter, it's 1 a quarter, but they're going to get this audio feedback, is that more valuable?
Other strategies that people have used or could imagine using?
I know that my students have expressed a strong
preference for small group reflection opportunities rather than in a larger group. That's within,
So
within a
discussion.
class period, discussion. Just like in a, in any typical population, there's people who take a longer time to process, and in their writing, they gave me a lot of feedback about that I may not participate that much in class, but when we're in smaller groups, I can do that much better. So I think taking a large group and breaking it down into smaller groups is really helpful.
I have to pick up on that point, the small group discussion. We often implement just what we're doing here, the small group, the poster piece, and then large group, small group, get your points together, present to large group and discuss, and all the while connecting to content. So it's reflection linked to the service experience, linked to the content, with presentation, discussion, and that serves a number of purposes. It's an effective teaching and learning tool. Moreover, they are developing skills such as you have mastered in your presentations and over the years, and we all strive to master. So we are building the collaborative work, the presentation skills, the critical thinking skills, all into the package. And I think that's the important piece. I made reference to holistic education, where we blend the knowledge, the skills, and the standards together into the process.
That makes sense. That makes sense. I mean, it does seem like the key thing with time is being realistic, and 120 students, and you want to give something meaningful, then you can't do it 4 times in a semester, whatever, and just kind of knowing what you can commit to, and then building in other opportunities for here or whatever. I think also many of the types of examples are, verbal, written, whatever, which I think the feedback process is very different than if students did more of an experiential kind of a reflection, the role plays, the photography or other media where it stands out and is more built in a group process, so you can kind of change it up a little bit so it's not always reflective journals all the time from a large number. So student buy-in, what are some strategies for student buy-in and just kind of bringing the student along into this process to make optimal use?
I don't know if this will help or not, but I'm fortunate to have been in the clinical world for many years and have opportunities to bring that into some of the classes that I teach. And I find that my enthusiasm, also my capacity for self-reflection about what has happened, has translated to a number of the students wanting to hear more about that. I think they get excited if we're excited about what we're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, modeling, for sure. Modeling and making it.
And if you can connect it to I really enjoyed our discussion this morning because it made me think about where our various disciplines fit in an increasingly suffering world. And yet we're preparing the next generation of students to kind of inherit the fields that we represent or have been introduced to ourselves. And I think if we can connect our own experiences with that world, and this is how we dealt with the suffering, or we continue to deal with the suffering world, that it makes it much more real for them. And that reflection, in some ways, aren't we the tools as clinicians? Our own experience becomes part of the equation. And that self-reflection and self-examination as teachers or as clinicians is a really important part of who we are, our identity.
Maybe embedding some sort of concrete activity that then allows opportunities for reflection. If you had the learning cults, learning types, right? And I think that
you know, even on Facebook, there's like, take a quiz, answer these questions about so-and-so. That's very much part of their world. So if you take some of those learning style inventories or personality tests or whatever, and then relate it to your course material and use that as a jumping off point, because they can totally relate to that. Who doesn't like to do, you know, what color am I? What personality color am I? And just something very concrete that maybe they value a little more and get the point behind, and then open it up into more abstract.
Yeah, no, I think that's really true. And if you then say, by the way, that was reflection, you just did it, like, ha, caught you, and you liked it. You know?
Right. And you got something out of it.
Yeah, yeah, so then you kind of win them over before they know that you're, yeah, I think that's, and then make it transparent. Yeah.
If I may pick up on these 2 points, a third that causes me to think about what we are currently doing in our service piece is to create a paradigm from which they can work by way of reflection. For example, again, discipline-specific, humanities, but I think this would hold for other disciplines. What are the big ideas, if you will? What are the linchpins for discussion, for reflection? So it could go in many directions. I borrowed from Mortimer Adler, the American philosopher, 6th grade ideas. So to begin with the whole reflection piece, we work in 2 categories. In fact, last semester, my students came up with a brand for our seminars. They created an umbrella, which has service on it, and there are raindrops coming down, and on one side is how we live, the ideas of liberty, equality, and justice. On the other side, how we judge truth, goodness, and beauty. So we stay with big ideas, and service, again, serves as this canopy or umbrella. And in their work, they're looking at one of those 6 great ideas. Now, many those ideas each spawn other virtues or values. Nonetheless, it's a paradigm for beginning. So there's, again, this lends itself particularly to humanities. But it was interesting to see this visual they came up with. Just to add this piece, last semester we conducted a service learning expo. My students contributed posters. Other students had PowerPoint, and we invited faculty. Now that was on service learning, but I'm here thinking that that could be extended into a broader piece of reflective learning, if you will. I don't know if that's good phrasing, but that type of learning expo, where faculty can demonstrate this piece of work from students, and student involvement, engagement to others. But I think selling this is an important way, and it has to come from the students.
I could see that you could increase buy-in by students if you had it, 1, across the curriculum, and 2, over the 4-year span that they were there. I would think it would be really cool to be able to have a number of reflective activities as a first-year student, have them capture them, and revisit them as seniors. And many of our curricula allow us to do that if we have first-year seminars, and then we have senior capstone courses. So if there could be, development of that across, and I think that'd be really profound. We as teachers see their transformation from first year to 4th, but they don't. And this might, in fact, help them understand.
And they can do a reflection
Yes.
on how they've grown and changed over 4 years. Yes.
That kind of goes along with portfolios, as a pedagogical tool that a lot of schools are beginning to use, particularly in professional schools. So, yeah, and there may also be, as you're talking about that, I'm thinking that another ally could be the advisement, the faculty advisors for students who kind of sit outside of a particular course, but look at a student's own learning trajectory and goals and whatever, and they can begin to build in this reflective, self-aware piece to that. So that might be another channel for changing the institutional culture within the context of what you're saying, a 4-year trajectory. Any other thoughts from student engagement, buy-in? I think we're at the final reflection. Actually, I'm going to skip to, we included a few references, and these are mostly drawn from looking for the evidence-based core reflection, because I think that takes it to a different level than just describing. It's not a bad thing, but it's another analytic level beyond that, I would say. The article that I particularly got a lot out of is the second one listed by Karen Mann, because even though it's about the health professions, which is most people here, but not everyone, it's a pretty systematic look into how reflection has been looked at and what's known and where the gaps are. And it may help you think about some maybe educational hypotheses that you have or ideas that you might want to try in your own courses and just evaluate in some way or another. But it's a really, really good overview, I found. So that's just a little orientation to the references. So we thought in the final minutes we would do a reflection activity of our own, and actually just before lunch we decided to modify it slightly. To think about, we're going to do two things. We're going to give you 5 minutes to just think and reflect on the day, whatever you want to do, wherever you want to take it. And then we're going to have you be in pairs or small groups and do a paired small group reflection as a kind of a different methodology. And then we'll come back as a group and share that, and also if it's relevant, if there's some way in which your reflection fits into this pyramid, just to kind of make more conscious use of that pyramid, we can do that too, and that will be the end. So take 5 minutes on your own, and then I will tell you when 5 minutes are up.